Hello, everyone. I'm State Senator Judy Schwank, and I represent the 11th Senatorial District in the Senate of Pennsylvania. And I like to call it the heart of Berks County because not only do I represent the city of Reading, I represent all of the communities surrounding the city, as well as reaching into some of the more rural areas such as Kutztown, Maxitawny Township, and Oley Township as well. So I truly am in the heart of Berks County. I was first elected to the Senate in a special election in 2011. And before that, I was the first ever woman to become a Berks County commissioner. I served 8 years in that role. I've been a teacher. I have served as the director of a nonprofit as well as the dean of a college. So I've had a pretty varied career in my life. And currently now I am the caucus administrator for the Senate Democratic Caucus. I serve as chair of the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee in the Senate, as well as a member of the Board of Governors for PASHE, which is our state system of higher education. And I have other committee roles too, but there's a lot.
You're busy bee.
Yeah.
You're everywhere. So you said you took office in what year?
2011.
2011. Okay, so it's been quite some time. So how would you say Reading has changed since you've taken office, and what role has the local government had in that change?
Reading has changed significantly since I've taken office, and I anticipate it will continue to change. Certainly demographically, we're continuing to see an increasing diverse population, and our population is growing and getting younger, which is a real distinction in terms of Pennsylvania demographics, because actually we're always called an aging state. Yet in Berks County, we have a bit of a bright spot. Because particularly our Latino population is skewing younger rather than older. So that has been a true benefit to us. But we are the fourth largest city in the Commonwealth, and many things have changed over those years. In terms of how local government had a role in that, I've seen certainly stronger city government and a lot more involvement in economic development and other cultural and social initiatives that have helped to strengthen our community.
Awesome. So from that period of like 2010 before 2018, there was an issue of gerrymandering when it came to like the district lining. How do you think that affected the city of Reading?
It affected us significantly. One good example is at one point, first of all, we were divided into many congressional districts. Over the years, we actually had one congressperson representing us, and it was actually better to have one rather than multiples who had interests lying in other communities, not just with Berks County and the city of Reading. So that's been an issue. But in one notable case, we were actually gerrymandered into sharing a congressional seat with the city of Lancaster and Lancaster County. That was really a difficult time in terms of representation. So gerrymandering has certainly impacted us. We still have several, if we're just talking about the city, we do have one congresswoman who represents us, but she has other areas as well too. But it's gotten better. Certainly our representation has gotten better. When we were gerrymandered into sharing a congressperson with Lancaster, it kind of separated the city from the rest of the county, which made governance and sort of the trying to get funds or trying to lobby for more resources for the community even harder.
So for those who may not be fully aware of gerrymandering, is that directly affects, like you said, our funding,
right,
as well as the initiatives that our city cares about, getting those, like you said, lobbied, right?
Correct, very much so.
So in that time frame as well, in 2011, the New York Times reported that Reading was the poorest city in the United States, with the poverty rate of about 41%. Today, that number is around 30%, and some reporting as low as the 8th poorest city in the United States now. So that's quite different. The numbers directly affect that we're no longer that same city. Can you just reflect on how that process has been, and how you see the city progressing further.
Well, we've made progress. There's no doubt about that. And it still rankles me when I hear, people talk about us as being the poorest city. That's very difficult um, to take because we're not anymore. Our incomes have increased, our educational attainment levels have increased as well, which bodes well for the future in terms of having a stronger community and a community that is not necessarily at a very high poverty level. So those things have certainly changed. And I think we've diversified in terms of our economic strengths. At one time, Reading was noted as a manufacturing, exclusively community, but we still are. But we've added other ancillary, economic initiatives such as service industries or agriculture and food processing. All of those. We have a pretty diverse economic development approach, and I think that has been helpful for us in terms of the progress that we've made. Most recently, we've been applying for a state program called CRIZ, which stands for the City Revitalization Investment Zone. That will give us an opportunity to attract more investors into the community in terms of building our economy, because they will get a tax break and they'll get financing incentives to be able to do that. So that is something that we're hopeful we will actually get. We've applied for it, and there's a lot of work engaged in it. But I think that's going to start us on another level of progress in terms of our economy and our classification no longer as being more of a poverty directed city.
I agree. When I sat down with Johanny Sepulveda, she also mentioned that she was very excited about that initiative you guys were working towards.
Right.
So in regards to that article, and you said it was very difficult to be kind of branded that, I think it stayed with the people as well as the community. So what would you say to some of those people who negatively perceive Reading based off of that article?
What's interesting about that, it's not just people from the outside of Berks County or Pennsylvania that still hold some of those negative perceptions. It's people right in our own county and our own city. For some reason, we have to work harder to tell the story about the good things that are happening. I don't think we're doing that as well as we should, but I anticipate as I talked about this younger population and these individuals that are very entrepreneurial, that are building a better city, I think that story is going to begin to spread. But that and we have work to do. There's no doubt about it. You can take a look at West Reading, for example, and then you go over the bridge and you're on Penn Street in Reading. It's not the same. Not that it needs to be, but certainly we need to see more of that same kind of revitalization taking place in our community too. And I think that's going to do a lot to change the perceptions of people. I still hear that too. And I always try my best to try to tell a different story to people. It amazes me sometimes the people who simply will not even come into Reading because of perceptions of not only of poverty but of crime. And that's definitely not the case any longer.
I would agree. One of the goals for this initiative for our project is sort of having people take another look. People, I think, have that set fix from that article came out. We're just asking them, look again.
Right.
There's more there now. There is more work, but there's more here now.
And we have to tell the story in a different way. We have to lure them in so they can actually say, oh, that's not so bad. I survived it. And maybe I'm over exaggerating there, but I do think that with our population growing and other newer people, sitting next to an individual who came to our community to work in a local college, he said, I'm amazed at what this community has to offer. We need to get people like that to start talking to other people too.
Yeah, I share that same sentiment. I'm actually from upstate New York. Came here about 2 years ago, and it still amazes me the community that you guys have built here, and just it makes it feel like home. Like I want to stay here. I want to be a part of this. So
I'm so glad. I think this is a great project, by the way. Thank you for doing it.
I appreciate you. So we do have a couple more questions for you.
Sure.
You spoke about the youth in Reading and how that community is growing. So what's some advice you would give to them who want to become more involved and have their voices heard in legislative issues that they care about?
First of all, they need to talk to people. They need to not be afraid to speak out to people like me. My ears are open. I seek to have people give me input, and particularly the youth, because their ideas are so different than necessarily the older population. Well, I need to hear from everybody, of course, but the ideas of what would make this a better community primarily comes from the youth in terms of what they would like to see. And they talk about entertainment opportunities, for example, or dining opportunities, recreational opportunities. We like to talk about how, we have this great park system and we have so many natural resources. Sometimes people are looking for something a little more urban, a little more upscale, and particularly youth. So I would say to them, one, tune in, talk, speak out, get involved, even if it's serving on a committee. For example, in city government, they have so many different committees and boards that they're really desperate for volunteer assistance. I think that's a great way to get started. And there are also many youth organizations like Voice Up, for example. Um, there are clubs within their schools, the school district itself. There are many ways to get engaged. And I would tell them, don't be afraid. You can't hurt to ask, and you'll never know unless you do actually reach out yourself.
Great.
But please know, I'm more than interested in what you think and what you think we should be doing.
Awesome. There are people willing to listen.
Yeah. Oh,
who want to
definitely
listen.
there are. There
Yeah.
really are.
Really, that was everything I have. But is there anything else you would like the community to know about you specifically?
Well, certainly there's some legislation that I'm excited about. I just got reelected, and there's some initiatives that I'm very interested in pursuing. One is housing. Very definitely, we have a housing crisis, and some of the young folks will talk about this. We know we have homeless teens in this community, not just Reading, but entire Berks County. A recent project at Reading High School, the Knights Keep, is an opportunity for youth that may not necessarily be just homeless, but don't have adequate housing. They may not have washing machines, or they're not they don't have clothing or food or some of those things that we'd like to see in a stable population. That's available through this new project, and I really applaud it, and I hope to be supportive of it. But there's also young people who are, have graduated high school or college or starting out on their new jobs. They're having difficulty finding apartments to rent, or even to think about buying a home has become so difficult. And this isn't just a problem in Berks County or Reading. This is actually a statewide and a national problem. So I hope to really ramp up my efforts on that. In fact, interestingly enough, I'm working on legislation. There are a lot of folks that live in we used to call it mobile homes, but now we call it manufactured housing. And they are finding that they're being priced out of the market as well in terms of their lot rentals. So I'm working with a coalition of folks to try to help these people. So across the board, housing is a big issue that I'm interested in. Environmental issues, those are things that, climate change, the severe drought that we've just been suffering, we know is in some way related to climate change. We need to address that on the local level with renewable energy, for example, different farming practices, since we have so much agriculture. There's so many ways that you can look at some of these issues. Also, certainly economic development will continue to be something that I champion. And women's health care. I serve as the co-chair of the Women's Health Caucus, and I'm very interested in looking at pregnancy and maternal morbidity, which are some of the illnesses that occur either before birth or after birth that are devastating to many of our populations. So things like that.
Anything else you'd like to add? Any comments?
Just again to say to everyone who may get an opportunity to view this that I'm excited to be a part of this community. I'm excited you're a part of this community. And I'm hoping that we can work together. That in my role, I have at least some, authority in terms of how funds are sometimes directed from the state level or the initiatives that we work on. Reach out, talk to me, let me know what I welcome that conversation.